everyone, welcome back to Indie Game Dev Report, a podcast where I tend to interview devs. This is episode 21. I have an awesome follow-up interview today with Studio Primitive on Attack of the Karens and Big Top Tactics, as well as some more future stuff. But before that, I want to chat for a couple minutes on some things. First, I wanted to remind people that I'm still accepting applications for interviews. If you find the Twitter account for the podcast at IGDR_podcast in the bio, there is a link to an application form you can fill out to be interviewed. So the way this works is that all applications get automatically added to a spreadsheet of possible interviews, and when I have time, this is where I go to find people to interview. So it might take time to get to everyone, and I'm not going in any order. I'm just looking through people's projects and seeing what I'd be interested in covering first. Then I reach out to those people and wait for a response. If I don't get a response, then I move on down the list and reach out to the next exciting project. So if you're hearing about this for the first time, go ahead and apply. You're not missing out on anything by signing up later. That said, these things do take time to line up the schedule and to produce it, so just be patient with me as I make my way through the list, and don't get discouraged if I don't choose yours right away. I'm going to try to make it through as many as I can, but at my own pace. This way I don't burn myself out or overfill my plate. Next, I want to bring up an idea that I had. Now, I haven't put any feelers out yet, and this is still kind of a concept, but I want to bring it up. I'm thinking it would be a lot of fun to have episodes where I bring on a few different devs at the same time to talk about different discussion topics, and we'll just kind of hash things out for an hour. We can introduce the devs with their projects and still plug the games and marketing beats, but I like the idea of having a live discussion. Depending on the response, I'll start scheduling these discussions as I see fit. The best way to get involved with this would be to reach out to me over Twitter. I may also add an option in the application to see if new applicants are interested. Anyone involved in these discussions would be able to bring up topics as well. We could do a little brainstorm beforehand so we all have at least some clue of what we're talking about, and then just go at it. It should be a good opportunity for everyone to learn a little bit, or at the very least, we get to hear what people have to say. Another thing I wanted to chat about for a quick second. Nearly a year ago now, I got a retro handheld emulator, and I've been having so much fun with it. It's great when I'm on the exercise bike, or if I'm baking something in the oven, or just waiting for an appointment. I play it a lot more than I originally expected. The one that I got is called a Miu Mini Plus, and while I do recommend it, there are some things you should know about it, and I'm sure it's that way for any of the retro handhelds. So before you run out and buy one, just check out things online and see what people are saying and find the right thing for you. For example, I kind of screwed mine up by using the Steam Deck charger to charge mine, so don't do that. My screen's unevenly lit now, and the replacement screens are really hard to come by. Luckily, I can still play it. It's totally still playable, so I still play the crap out of it, even with the screen being kind of funky. But yeah, I upgraded the OS on it, so there was a little bit of a learning curve on that, but it's much better with that. But I'm not going to get in all that. You can totally look up that stuff online on your own time. But I do want to bring up that you can very easily load games into the thing. So tons of ROMs that you can get from itch.io, they work fine. The Pico 8 website has a ton of games on it, and you can download the Pico 8 carts, which is actually a PNG image file that contains the game data, which is still super cool and mind-blowing to me. And you can just add those images to your handheld and play those games on your device, assuming that they don't require a mouse, or some games don't work or whatever. Now, originally I grabbed my handheld emulator to play ROMs that I make with Game Boy Studio just to test my own game. I quickly got sucked into the whole Game Boy game jam and homebrew scene, and though I haven't actually gotten very far with Pico 8, I've been playing a ton of other Pico 8 games, so I just wanted to chat a little bit about some of the games that I've found. I'm a big fan of puzzle games, and those retro handheld emulators are just perfect for them. So I'm going to go into some puzzle games here. I grabbed Block Droppin' by Thalamus Digital for Game Boy Color on itch.io for just $1, and it was totally worth $1. It's kind of short, but for $1 you can't complain. There's only 20 levels in the puzzle mode, but the arcade mode makes up for it because it's endless. I really enjoyed the progression of the puzzle mode, so it would have been nice to see more of that. Regardless, it's quite a bit of fun. It's like most match 3s where the screen is filled with different blocks and you choose which two you would like to swap, and if it links 3 or more of the same, then they vanish and you get points. In arcade mode, there's a timer. Puzzle mode, you're limited by how many moves you can make. It's a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it. It's got great aesthetics. It's very well polished, and it's just $1. Now, there's another game just like that one. That one was block drop, and this next one is called Fruit Pursuit by TBSP, Tablespoon, I imagine, but the abbreviation, so TBSP, again on itch.io. And Fruit Pursuit is a match 3 game about collecting fruit in a race to the finish. It's currently in beta, so it's actually free to download, and it's very similar to block drop. And so if you didn't want to pay the $1, you can totally check out Fruit Pursuit, and it's kind of the same game. It's actually got a few other things. It's got a tutorial. It keeps track of all the high scores for each of the game modes, and there's 3 different speed settings. It looks like more music is going to be added since there's an option for it, but right now there's only 1 song. There's actually 3 game modes in this Fruit Pursuit game. There's a race mode, a timed mode, and a sprint mode. And the sprint mode is interesting because the other 2 are just like block dropping, but in sprint mode, that's completely different. You try to reach a score of 200,000 as quickly as possible. So that's kind of nice. The main differences between block dropping and Fruit Pursuit has a white background, while block dropping has a black background. Fruit Pursuit has more UI as well as the extra game mode. Also, in Fruit Pursuit, you're just limited to fruit, where block dropping, it starts you with blocks with symbols on them, and then you unlock fruit, and then after the fruit, you unlock gemstones. So both of these games are great, and it's interesting to note the differences between the games. But honestly, I had a lot of fun with both of them. If you like one, you'll like the other. So I recommend just grabbing them both. I mean, the one was only $1, the other is free and in beta. It's just a lot of fun to play those and to see the differences. Another matching game I've been playing that's quite different is called Bond Stones for Pico 8 by Benjamin Soul, who is part of the Pancake de la Sioux. Now, this isn't a new game. It's something that I just found, and I love it. It's actually from a 72-hour game jam from 2020, and you can get it for free. Just search for Bond Stones on Pico 8, and you'll find the Pico 8 website where you can play it in the browser, or if you click on the part of the game window where it says cart, you can download the cart, play it on your retro handheld, which I very much recommend. In Bond Stones, the screen starts empty, and the game pieces come down from the top. There are a bunch of different shapes and a bunch of different colors. You want to match either. So a red X and a green X can be linked, or a red X and a red square could be linked. After the link has all of the shapes and colors that it needs, then it clears and gives you points. This is made even cooler by giving you experience points for each piece. And when you get enough experience points, the player levels up and receives what roguelites commonly call a curse. So for example, you level up and the random curse might half the amount of time you have before the next pieces drop, or maybe you'll get more bubbles, or the parasite blocks that drop down randomly on their own, or maybe you get more shapes or more colors. There are more, but I can't remember them all. I've been playing a ton of that one. It's a lot of fun. It's a great play length at around 15 or 20 minutes. And what's really cool is when things tend to get really hard in this one, it's different reasons each time because of the curses that you have. There's definitely a good amount of replayability in this one, as well as strategy. You get better at playing it as you play. So yeah, go check out Bond Stones. It's definitely a lot of fun. And then lastly, I want to bring up a Steam game that is a recent release called Box Room by Ismael Rodriguez. This one is a pixel art top-down orthographic puzzle game where each room has blocks that must be cleared. And in this one, you pick up the boxes and you throw them around to sort them. It's kind of like throwing pots in Zelda. Once you've sorted the things, you can detonate them with special lightning blocks, or you can use those lightning blocks to create combos if you disarm them. You work your way through a dungeon of rooms. Some of the rooms are puzzle-based, while others are more about lasting as long as possible, while the blocks keep dropping down. Each room has its own challenge to keep things interesting, and you pick up equipable power-ups that help you beat the different challenges. I've been having a lot of fun with this one. It's brand new on Steam for $6 before the sale. Definitely worth it if you like this type of game. I would recommend Ismael Rodriguez's other game called Tuttle Starflower Harvest, which is more of a quick but arcadey side view farming game with cool pixel art aesthetic. So those might be bundled together, and you could totally get both of those and it'd be worth it. But yeah, I don't want to spend too much more time talking about games today, but I did have an absolute blast with all of those, and I may or may not bring up other games that I've been playing in future episodes. Okay, with all of that out of the way, I'm ready to share my follow-up interview with Studio Primitive. Hey everybody, I've got awesome interview today. I've got Joel from Studio Primitive, and it's very interesting because this is the second time he's been on the show. And back when I first started the show, I was kind of hoping to have people come back and share progress reports in postmortems and that kind of thing. And this is the first time since I started that I've actually had a guest come back. So I'm really excited for that. Joel, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure, yeah. So I'm Joel. I run Studio Primitive. Been doing game dev for probably since about this time in 2020, maybe a little bit before that. So about 4 years now, I've been making games. And I just had my first release last year in September. It was Attack of the Karens, and then that launched on Switch just last month, which was really exciting. And then in between that, or actually before that, I did a few kind of small game jam type games to get my skills, going and learn game dev and get used to it. And then since then, I've done one small game with my brother Grant, kind of a tactics game, a circus themed tactics game. And then since then, I've been kind of working on a couple of new ideas. And yeah, we can get into that more later, but just kind of playing around with some ideas. And I think I have a pretty solid concept of a new project I want to start here pretty soon. So
that's awesome.
That's me. So
now, just real quick, you mentioned that your brother had joined the team for a little bit. Is he still part of the team? Is that still ongoing?
Yeah, he is. So we've got an idea we're working on kind of in the background, and it's a project he's been wanting to do for a long time, probably a decade or so. And I don't know if he wants me to share anything about it right now. He's kind of leading that project, but I'm really excited to talk about that one once he's ready. I think it'll be really, really fun to work on that one. So yeah, he's definitely still very involved, still part of the team. I'm just kind of waiting on his guidance there for that game. So while that's kind of in the background for me, I'm kind of working on some solo ideas.
Cool. That's awesome. And you probably have a good working relationship if you're working with your brother. I know, sometimes brothers are, difficult to work with, or sometimes,
Yeah, I mean, I'm really fortunate enough to have, good brothers, and we grew up in a good family, spending a lot of time together. And I mean, of course, there was some turbulent times, as there always is with family, but I think in the end, we kind of came out really good friends, right? And so game dev is something that he actually started doing before I ever did it. He got a couple of games going back in the Greenlight stage of Steam and back in the Wii U phase. So he kind of started getting into it back then. And I was really kind of amazed at what he would do and the things he would produce. And so I kind of, back in 2020, when I first started thinking about it, he was one of my main inspirations for starting to do game dev, was the things he did. I'd always kind of wanted to do it in the back of my head. And around 2020, I finally just said, hey, I'm just going to try this. And so him and I have always kind of talked about game dev and our ideas and everything since then. And we just decided late last year, hey, let's just try doing something together. And him and I, we went to a concert downtown Salt Lake City, and went and saw Tool. And it was an awesome show. Anybody who hasn't seen Tool should definitely go see it. It's an amazing experience. But on the way back, we just started talking about, what if we started making games together? We started talking about all these ideas and things we wanted to try. And some of them have come to pass. Some of them maybe have kind of changed a little bit since we first planned it out. We started doing a couple of streams and stuff, and doing this one thing where we talk about mashing up two different genres, where we have a wheel that's full of different genres. We spin it twice, then we mash those genres together, and we spin another wheel for a theme, and then we create a game based off that. And then that's not really for a commercial game type thing. It's more like just to get our skills going and understand each other's workflows and kind of what our strong talents are. And that's actually where the most recent release we did, which is Big Top Tactics, that's where that came from, was one of those live streams where we matched those genres together. So it's been a really good relationship working with him and figuring that all out. So
that sounds awesome. Also, I'm a Tool fan as well.
Yeah.
I did see them after their last release, and that was a a good show for sure. I'm not sure if I'm going to go see him again, just because I've already spent so much on Tool tickets in my life. That, like, but
Yeah, this one was actually his wife. My brother's wife works for a company that was able to get us free tickets, so it was
that
no
helps.
cost to us, and we got to go into like a private box and everything with food, and it was
Wow,
awesome.
that's so cool.
If you
Yeah, I
could,
think
if
I
you could
paid
ever do
200
that, that's
for
the
my
way to
ticket.
see a concert. But otherwise, it's still awesome.
Yeah. Like I don't know, concert tickets are just so expensive
Oh
these days. But
yeah,
if you can
they
get it
are.
for free, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Because that was a great album. But yeah, I wanted to ask you real quick. I noticed that Big Top Tactics, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I noticed that Big Top Tactics is made with Construct 3. Did you
Yeah.
want to talk about your experience with Construct 3?
So I don't know if I can say very much about that. That's Grant's tool of choice, my brother. So
Okay.
I just did the artwork for that game, all the pixel art. He did all of the engine work and programming and design work in Construct. So that's kind of how we share the load when we both work on a game. Is Construct is really good at like quick prototyping and producing simple concepts from games. It's from what I understand about it, it's more built for like platformers and those kinds of games, but it can also do. Well, I mean, we built a kind of a semi-tactics game with it, so it can do that. But it's entirely web-based, and from what I saw, it was extremely flexible and easy to work with and quick to produce stuff. So I played around with it really, really lightly, just kind of doing like a demo that they kind of like a tutorial that they have on their website. And I was able to get a game going within like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, where Unity, you can do that, but it takes a little bit longer, right? Unity is usually like a half hour or something to get something really kind of moving depending on your skills. And so I just found Construct to be quicker, but I think it is pretty limited in terms of you can't do 3D graphics with it. And so there's really no kind of 3D rendering capabilities or lighting, obviously. It's really kind of more bare bones for 2D sprite-based games.
I see. Yeah, I took a look at the website, and it looks like you can do some 3D stuff, but it's limited. And also like the free version is very limited compared to the non-free versions. So yeah. But that was interesting to me, so I did want to bring it up. But we should get back to Attack of the Karens. Now, the last time I had you on, this was about 2 years ago, and you were still pretty early in the development of Attack of the Karens. And I think even the footage that I have on YouTube for that podcast episode was like very early on compared to the beta. And I took part in the beta, and that was a lot of fun. But how did the release go and all of that? How was that experience for you putting it on Steam and then we can get into the Nintendo Switch aspect of it.
Well, I'll say this about Attack of the Karens. It was definitely a learning experience, right? So the first game I had ever launched on Steam was Attack of the Karens, and so throughout the whole project, I just told myself, hey, this is just for me to learn. It's for me to be able to finish something, get it out there on a commercial level, so something that people can buy, because I had done some itch projects before, and they were really, really small compared to what I did with Attack of the Karens. And so the development was good. It was long, and I learned a whole lot, which meant that I made a lot of mistakes and had to go back and redo a lot of things. And I think I'm at a much better position now after release than I was obviously before I started it. I've got so many more tools in terms of artwork, in terms of programming under my belt than I did before I started it. And the launch went as good as I think it could have gone. I tried to time it to where it came out during Steam Shmup Fest, which is what they did last September. And so I launched on Monday, which was the day that Shmup Fest started. And so my hope was launching on that day combined with the Shmup Fest would get additional visibility. It didn't get very much, partly because, the theme of the game it's a little weird. Mostly what I saw from people taking a look into the game and what press has been saying about it was they either think it's like a joke, right? Like it's not a serious game, or they want it to be like a shoot 'em up, more of a shoot 'em up. They kind of struggle one way or the other. So they're either shoot 'em up fans that want it to be more of a hardcore shoot 'em up, or the people coming in that think it's just a joke. And but when they actually play it, they end up really liking it. So a lot of the reviews say I didn't expect much from this game, but after I played it, I really enjoyed, the roguelite mechanics. I really enjoyed the humor. The voice acting was excellent. The artwork was good. The gameplay was addicting. So all these really good things came out of it. But I think getting people to try the game was really hard because they didn't know whether they should just pass it off as a joke or take it seriously. And so I guess that's the trouble with making a game that's based on a meme is you're always going to get those people that just kind of chuckle at it and move on and don't take it very serious. Whereas if you're building something that has kind of a serious tone, people might take it up front more seriously and kind of more, oh, this is a project somebody put a lot of time into, a lot of effort into, and they took things serious. Where I obviously did that with Attack of the Karens, but because of the jokey theme of it, people think that it's just some silly side project that just took a couple of weekends for me to build. So they don't really get to see kind of the depth of the game and all the quality that I tried to inject into it during the development process up front through a trailer. So they really have to kind of sit down and try it. And so that was kind of the point where I kind of missed on that game was choosing that theme and choosing kind of a Karen style to it really is it kind of pulled away from the game, I would say, in the end. But I mean, really, I'm proud of what I did. I'm super excited that I got a game out there on Steam and now on Switch. I'm really excited that I reached that personal milestone. I mean, that's a big, huge achievement for me personally. Just to have something out there people can play, people can purchase, and that people have really liked has been monumental for me. And it's been kind of the main fuel I've used to kind of roll into the next project. I said, well, now I did this. What's stopping me from building something a little bit different now and trying a new direction? So it's really been exciting.
Wow. Yeah, no, I had a blast playing it, and I can kind of see where you're coming from with the reviews and stuff, because I've been kind of watching from the sidelines what people say and what people think about it. And yeah, I see the same thing that you're seeing, is that a lot of times people don't think that it's serious, and then they end up really liking it once they give it a shot. Because, well, anyone who hasn't played it or doesn't know about it, it's a side-scrolling shoot 'em up with roguelite like features. So, and all the bosses and enemies and stuff have a Karen theme. So yeah, it is funny. Like the hydro flasks are flying across the screen and things of that nature. But at the same time, you actually did test it a lot, and you had beta testers play it, and you took a bunch of feedback and you made a bunch of changes. So there is a lot of heart put into it, and it's not like it's not like a long game, but it's not like a super short game either. It's not like 10 minutes and you're done. You can play this for hours and still have a good time. And I don't think I even got to the end. I played it quite a few hours and did not get to the end. So, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. Now with these, were you going to say something on that?
I'm saying, yeah, and a lot of the people that have ended up playing it, some of them have reviewed it at 4 or 5 hours put into the game, which is more than I ever really expected somebody to be playing it. I planned on it being maybe about a 1-2 hour game, and you finish it and you're done. But towards the end of the development, I decided to add in these things called modifiers. So you explained the game really well. It's a horizontal shoot 'em up that has roguelite mechanics, and so it's kind of you're dying frequently and you want to go back and replay the game several times. And then each time, you can go back and buy meta upgrades to kind of strengthen your ship and upgrade your stats, get you new weapons and utilities. But I also threw in this element of you can have the game turn on and turn off modifiers. So there's these things called curses and cushions, where curses will make the game more difficult, like it'll slow your bullets down or make them shoot in a really wide spread. Or if you don't collect, modules, which is your resource to upgrade your ship between runs, if you don't collect the modules soon enough, they'll explode into an array of bullets. So, or on the flip side of that, you can add cushions, which make the game easier, such as, you get faster bullet firing rate, you get more bullet damage, you get more health, enemies have less health. So if you're kind of stuck on the game, or if you finish it early and you want more of a challenge, you kind of have the option to go back and add some replay value, or you can see the whole story if you can't finish it normally by turning off and on some of those modifiers. So I think that's kind of helped people go back and get more value out of the game. There are a couple of achievements on Steam where if you finish the game with like one modifier or three modifiers, you can get those extra achievements that are really kind of hard to get. So some of those people really kind of play the game for a few hours with those modifiers trying to get the extra content. So I think that's kind of helped add to the replayability a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the meta progression I felt was like very clean and precise. You knew what things were doing for the most part. You didn't have to question how the game was going to be changed when you edited things or anything or modified the gameplay.
Yeah.
I did want to ask about the Switch porting process. Now, did you have help porting that from a publisher or something like that?
I did, yeah. So after I launched on Steam, about a couple of weeks later in October, I think it was early October, I had Flynn's Arcade reach out to me through Twitter, and they sent me a DM and they said, "Hey, would you like to get the game on Switch? Yeah, or would you ever want to get the game on Switch?" I said, "I would love to. I just don't have the knowledge to do that or the tool set." Because Unity, you can do that, but you need certain APIs to integrate Switch functionality into your code, and I didn't have that license to do that. You need that license from Nintendo. You have to be an approved developer, and that application process can be really difficult sometimes if you don't have sponsorship or if you don't have a publisher behind you. And so I hadn't really tried. But
I think the SDK is expensive too, right? The Switch SDK.
I think it's about $750 or so to get an SDK. It's what I heard online. I don't know for sure, but so those kind of held me back from trying to do any ports. And like I said, for Attack of the Karens, I just kind of thought of this as a small first commercial project to get something out there, and then I was going to move on to a different game. And so I thought, the Steam launch was going to be it. I didn't really plan on porting to consoles. That wasn't part of the plan. And when they reached out on Twitter, I kind of said, yeah, maybe we could make this happen. And so it was a really big question mark for me at that point. I said, yeah, I'd love to. And they said, well, we can help you with that. And so they offered to port the game to Switch, which was awesome. And so I looked them up, and they were legit, and they've ported several awesome retro arcade style titles to the Switch before. And so I said, well, I think this is a real deal. And so I signed with them, which was awesome. And they were able to take the code, and we set up a repo and everything for them to download it. And they added in all the functionality that they needed to do for Switch. And I got a test copy, probably about February this year. And then they got to play it on the Switch. And so they did ask me to do a couple of things on my end for that. So one was they wanted to launch it in the Japanese market. And so I had to go back through the code and add my own localization system to the whole game. For Japanese, and that took a significant amount of effort to go back through the game and make sure everything was localized. So that was the biggest chunk that I had to do, and also we had to kind of adapt it for some Switch controls. So I had to create some glyphs for icons and things of when you change to Switch controls versus PC that would show up, and so that was my chunk. But they handled all of the Switch side porting, such as integrating with the control system and saving data, and all those kind of things that are going to be different going to the console. And so I didn't really have any hand in that. I was lucky enough to have them take on that work. So
when all is said and done, you would consider that to be a good partnership, maybe for other devs?
Yeah, I mean, Flynn's was great. They were super good to work with. And I think for, the result of the launch, I can't really talk about specifics on revenue that's come back because there's NDAs there with Nintendo. But the sales have already surpassed what we've done on Steam.
That's awesome.
Which has been good. Yeah. So, I think it's got a bright future. So
that's so cool. Yeah. I mean, I know how scary it can be as a developer myself to get like emails or DMs from people who you don't know yet, and they're like publishers or they claim to be publishers, and there's so many scammers out there these days that you really have to do the due diligence of researching everyone who comes, if you're going to take their things seriously, and that's really cool that someone came to you and they were legit and it worked out,
Yeah.
I can see how that could be scary.
that was my first thought actually when they did reach out to me. I'm like, this is a scam because nobody reaches out to you for such a small release as mine and says, hey, let's put it on Switch, you know? And so I was really kind of surprised when they did that. And yeah, like I said, I looked them up and they were legit. There was a couple of other people that reached out to me and I think they were legit, but their kind of titles and their library didn't really line up with what I wanted to do, what I was doing with Attack of the Karens. And so I said no on those publishers. But Flynn's really kind of fit the bill. I mean, they're kind of a pixel art, retro, arcade style publisher, and that's exactly kind of where Attack of the Karens is. So it fit well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've noticed myself that like some of these publishers that seem like scams, they are legit, but you never know what deals they're going to give you as far as the actual paperwork and stuff. And you hear about some, you know, really bad deals being made these days.
Yeah.
Or publishers that just do some really janky things. You know, so I guess this is just more of a warning to everyone else who's listening to just really research anyone that you're going to partner with, and maybe even reach out to people that they've partnered with to ask them how their experience was. Kind of like I just did with Joel.
And I would also add to that and say, you know, if you do get reached out to by a publisher, you're going to get really excited and you're going to get all these ideas in your head of possibilities and stuff. But don't worry if it doesn't go the way you want, because if somebody's reached out to you about your game, that means, you know, it's good. And it means publishers are interested and you probably have the chance of getting another publisher. So if it doesn't work out in terms of, you know, the contract terms or whatever, and it just falls through, just, you know, keep your head up because there's going to be another deal that's going to come through, whether it's this title or the next title. It shows that you've got good skills, right? And so you should be proud of the fact that somebody has reached out to you about your game. That's a win right there.
No, I think that's an excellent point. You said you can't talk too much about future projects. Was there anything that you could talk about coming up?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about some of the things that I want to do. I don't think Grant's ready for me to share about his project, but yeah, if you wanted to jump into some of the things I'm working on now, we definitely could.
Yeah, sure. I mean, unless you had something else that you wanted to bring up first.
Well, maybe we could chat about Big Top Tactics a little bit if you wanted to.
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. I got a chance to play that last night for the first time, and it was interesting. It was very interesting. It wasn't what I expected after Attack of the Karens.
Yeah, so
I guess some of that's because there was another person working on it.
Yeah, for sure.
But the art was great.
Well, thank you. So that game was a really fun game to make. So it's free. It's on itch.io. You can go play it right now for anybody that's listening. It's just on our Studio Primitive profile page on itch. But so the way that game was conceived, I think I shared this earlier, is we had Wheel of Genres and we spun it twice. And we got a turn-based tactics game and an action game. And so we blended them together. We made a turn-based action tactics game, which kind of contradicts one another. And then we spun the wheel of themes and we got a circus theme. And so that's what the output of that was, is Big Top Tactics. So in it, you move around as your ringleader and you try to encourage your performers to keep performing by picking up popcorn. And so as you do that, the angry crowd comes into the circus and wants to come and harass your performers. And so every time the angry crowd comes and demands that your performers put on a show, you have to do this kind of quick timing game and complete a mini game, kind of a WarioWare style mini game. And if you complete it successfully, then you can move on and you don't lose your morale. But if you lose and your morale goes down, and if your morale goes all the way down on a certain performer, that performer's morale's meter goes down. And if they go all the way down, they quit the circus. And if all three of your performers quit, then you lose. But if you're able to complete 10 performance rounds, then you win the game. And so that was kind of our idea of meshing tactics-based gameplay with action. Is, you know, you move around on a tile grid, and then the enemy moves around on a tile grid, kind of like, you know, Fire Emblem or something like that. And then the action part came in, and it's when, you know, the crowd attacks your performers, and you have to perform for them by pushing button press sequences or something like that. And so I think in the end, it was really kind of a cool blend of tactics-based strategy movement versus action-based quick-time gameplay. So I'm really happy with the way the project turned out. There was a couple of videos that were put out about it, and people were pretty complimentary. And that game, it got featured on the front page of Itch for about 2 or 3 days, I think. It was lower down on the list, but it got featured for a little bit. And so it got a huge spike of visibility. I think it got about, I want to say about 100,000 impressions at its max peak.
Wow.
And then it didn't get nearly as many plays. It got, in the hundreds of plays, but still, like, to get something that got hundreds of plays on Itch when everything else that I'd put over the span of its lifetime maybe got like 50 plays, was huge. And so I was just like, this is cool just to be able to have a game that people experience and enjoyed. And Grant and I thought about, man, should we turn this into like a full game and put it on Steam? But we decided that we were kind of done with the project and we wanted to just move on to something else. And so we'd actually started building a Metroidvania style game after that, but that kind of fizzled out. We kind of lost our passion there, and that's when Grant kind of decided, hey, what if we started on this other project I've been wanting to do for a long time, which is going to be a more major project, because these projects like Big Top Tactics that we've been doing were meant to be like a 5-week project, right? So we started week 1 and finished on week 5, and that was our scope. Whatever we could do in that time, we would just launch it. And so, yeah, that's where we are now. And so,
yeah, no, I think Big Top Tactics turned out really well. A couple things I felt like when I completed it, I wanted there to be another level.
Yeah.
So I guess that's good feedback in a way, right? Where if my only complaint was that I wanted more.
That's what a lot of people had said, was it was good, but it was short. Like, I wanted more performers, more levels and that kind of thing. And that's where the 5-week scope kind of came in, was, we did as much content as we could in that amount of time. And we said, no, that's it. We're going to move on to something else. So.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was like a construct limitation or if it was a scope limitation, but that makes sense that if you only spent 5 weeks on it, that there would only be so much gameplay.
Yeah.
Because gameplay takes time to produce.
Yeah, it definitely
and
does.
And then polishing it takes even more time.
Right? Yeah, for sure.
But it was fairly polished for what it was. Everything played well. The only thing that like, there was no gamepad controls, but like, it's a mouse and keyboard game, so it works.
Yeah. Like I said, it was really minimal, but it was just a project for us to figure out each other's workflows and to accomplish what we did with the genre wheels combining together and the theme wheel. And so that was kind of just a challenge to stretch ourselves and see what we could do in 5 weeks. But
I think you guys did a really good job for 5 weeks. I really
Thank you.
So did you want to go into future projects then?
Yeah, let's talk upcoming stuff. So after Attack of the Cairns launched, and throughout its whole development, I had kind of been listening to a lot of marketing stuff and reading up on a lot of marketing things. And I was already a year and a half into the project by the time I discovered Chris Zukowski. And he's kind of been my go-to for knowing what to do on Steam in terms of marketing. And for anybody out there that doesn't know of Chris, you should definitely go to his website and sign up for his email newsletter, because he gives great gems of advice on indie game marketing. I've
actually met Chris Zukowski before.
Have you really?
Yeah, because he's from Arizona, where I was living for like a while there. And I was going to the game dev meetups, and he was sharing his talk on email marketing. And that was actually right before GDC. And then he won an award for his talk at GDC that year. So after that, he just kind of blew up.
Yeah.
But I had a chance to ask him a few questions about Retro Spaceball and stuff.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. His website has so much gold as far as, well, not just his microphone, but all the things he has to say. He's every time I get a chance to hear him talk at the game dev meetups, because I still frequent the Arizona meetups as much as I can, even though I'm in near Chicago now. Anytime that he's in there talking, I definitely join, because he's got a lot to say.
Yeah, and he makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of game devs don't like to hear what he has to say. In terms of like he kind of goes against the grain in what most indie devs want to do. So most indie devs want to get started making their idea of what a good game is, right? And they want to make what they think is going to be a fun game, and they don't really do a lot of upfront market research and say, okay, what does the market want? What do people want from me to make as a dev? And they just make, they make a platformer, or they make whatever idea comes to their head. It's not necessarily something they've vetted out against the market. And so I've really tried to take his advice, internalize it, and understand everything he's been talking about and apply it to my solo dev situation. Because one of the problems I've got with the game dev community as a whole is there's a lot of really good advice and a lot of good people out there that are giving good things you can use and things you can do for your career. But if you're a solo dev, a lot of that advice kind of goes out the window because they're gearing it towards mid studios, right? Like 5 to 10 to 15, 20 people. They're talking about how to grow your studio and how to hire people and those kinds of things. And that's all well and good, but I'm just a guy that's got kids, that's got a full-time job, and I need to know what I can do to succeed, in the game dev market. And so that's where I really appreciated Chris. He kind of breaks it down to a small solo dev level sometimes with some of the things he talks about. Even though I think he works with larger studios that produce games that have, six-figure revenues when they launch, or millions of dollars in revenue when they launch. I'm looking for, how can I make $5,000 on my next game? How can I make $10,000 on my next game? So I'm thinking small scope. Like Attack of the Cannibals was nowhere near anything that they're talking about with like a mid-sized launch. And so I really appreciate his advice and his little nuggets that he gives out in his talks and in his email newsletter. And so I've really taken a lot of that and internalized and understand what can I do as a solo dev to kind of set myself on the direction for success on my next project. And so one of the things I've done in this new game that I'm developing is I've kind of looked at, okay, putting my own stuff aside, what skills do I have and what can I make that's going to be palatable to the market right now? And so I went through so many different ideas of things I wanted to do next. I've thought about, city builders. I've thought about first-person shooters. I've thought about one of the ideas that I almost went with and actually started developing for a long time was I was going to make a Vampire Survivors like game, but it was going to be you're driving a snowplow through a bunch of zombies, right? And so your snowplow would get upgraded and get bigger, and it would have all these different mechanics to it. And I put a lot of time into making a prototype on that, but I ended up just abandoning that just because the market is getting so saturated with those types of games that I didn't really want to do that. And so I got a subscription to VG Insights. And for anybody out there, if you want to really kind of understand the Steam market, get a subscription to VG Insights because it'll give you kind of good data. It doesn't, let me say this, as an engineer, that's my full-time job. I want to be able to understand data kind of I want to be able to say, okay, if I put in this elements into a game, I'm going to have this much of a revenue output. And that's not possible with the game dev market. There's just way too much noise out there for us to be able to say, okay, if I make this type of game and this type of genre with this art style, I'm going to get this revenue out of it. That's just not possible. And that in marketing in general, that's just not possible, and especially in game dev, just because there's just way too much that's going on behind the scenes that you can't measure, that you can't quantify, that trying to come up with a formula like that is very, very difficult. And so what I've been able to do with VG Insights is just kind of take a look at themes, right? Like just look at groups of data and trends and see where things are going and see generalities of things as opposed to specifics. So I've been looking at broad-based genres of, how do strategy games perform versus action games versus RPGs versus simulation games. Look at those kind of different genres and say what is kind of the most profitable right now in terms of the market. And so kind of the direction I'm going now is going with more of there's a micro genre of games that's kind of doing well right now, which is kind of cozy builder type games, right? And so if you've heard of what was it called, Summer Home? Did you hear about that game that came out a few weeks ago?
I have. I can't remember the exact title.
I think it's called Summer House. Yeah, Summer House is what it is.
Okay.
So Summer House is a really kind of simple builder game where all you do is you just have kind of this really kind of pixelated view of this house, right? And you start with an open field. And so you can pick like different blocks of your house and you can place the block here, then you can place a window here, you can place a door here, you can place a second level on top of that, you can place a roof, you can place some trees. And there's really no kind of object to the game other than you're just going in and you're just building stuff, right? You're just having fun, relaxing, chilling, and just building something. And this is kind of a successful micro genre within Steam of these kind of casual builder games that don't really have a lot of stress to them or a lot of anxiety or a lot of kind of consequences if you don't do well. They're just ways to kind of chill and kind of spend your time relaxing and building something like a sandbox game, right? And so that's where I want to go with this next game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in a pixel art style, but it's going to be a game where and I haven't announced it yet, so I don't know quite all the specifics of where I'm going to go, but the general direction I want to go is you get to build a retro style mall from the 80s in a pixel art style, right? And so you'll start off by building a small smoothie shop and building some things. And as you build more and more of your mall, more patrons come in and start to visit your mall. And the more patrons that come in and see your mall, you get to unlock more shops to put inside your mall. And so then you can put in like a record shop or you can put in like a karate studio, and eventually you'll build up to where you can put in an anchor store in your mall, like a department store. And so really the object of the game is just going to be to build this cool environment of a mall. And you can just kind of scale it up. You can level it up to where you can build second, third, fourth floors with escalators and stuff. And so that's my vision for this next game, is to do something like Summer House, like a cozy builder, but kind of do it in an 80s mall pixel art aesthetic.
That sounds really interesting. I love the 80s idea and the pixel art aspect of it. What kind of camera view are you seeing in your head at this point?
So what I'm envisioning now, it'll be kind of a 2D front view. And so you'll kind of view everything from the front and you'll see storefronts and everything, and the escalators will go up and down. Okay. And so your patrons will kind of walk side to side. They'll take elevators up and down on the screen or escalators up and down and visit different stores and that kind of thing. So
like Summer House then, a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, and I have been seeing an influx of this particular micro genre. Garden Galaxy was another one. Of course, that one's like a 3D isometric view, but same kind of premise where you're just placing objects and decorating, essentially.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, it's not something that I had wanted to go into when I started doing game dev. Like this, again, isn't something that I'm dreaming as my dream game, but it seems like it's something that could be accomplishable with the scope that I have and being one person on a solo team. But it also seems like a genre that could be a little bit more successful than, say, the roguelite shoot 'em up that I've already tried. So it's a pivot in direction for me for sure. It's going to be put me out of my comfort zone a little bit and get me to meet probably some new people and some new streamers that I've never really met before. But it'll be exciting. I'm really kind of excited to kick off this project.
Yeah, that's cool. It's great to go outside of your comfort zone. I really think it is, because it makes you learn things, and the way to become the best dev you can is to become good at learning things.
Yeah.
That's just the way it kind of is, I mean, you could keep making the same game over and over again, and maybe that works for some devs, but it's not going to feel good, and again, it's different for everyone.
Exactly. And for me, on top of that, I want to try something new, but the scope has to be small enough to where I can accomplish it within a reasonable amount of time, because one of the things that I just did not like about Attack of the Karens was how long it took for the size of game it ended up being, right? So it ended up only being a few hours of gameplay, but the game took 2.5 years to launch on Steam. It took 3 years to launch on Switch, right? And so I don't want to spend another 3 years before I launch my next game. And I know a lot of devs out there, like 3 years isn't really that big of a time to make a game, but to me, I want to start releasing games more rapidly. And so doing things in a genre like this, where the tech requirements aren't huge and the art requirements, it's got to look good. It's got to look really good. That's one of the keys of the genre, but I can make pixel art that could probably do pretty well, I think. And so I have those skills in my corner, and I think I could accomplish it within about a 6 month to a year time frame is what I'm hoping. So
Yeah, I mean that's the goal is typically is to have a lot of games so that way if a player finds one that they like and then they click on your Steam developer page, then they'll see that you've got a whole bunch of other games, and if they like it enough, they'll check out those other games.
yeah.
Or at least one could hope, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a company's not built off of one product, right? And so I think a lot of devs think if I could just make that one killer game, I would just be set and my studio would be running and everything. But really, you establish your brand and you establish your skills over a bunch of releases. And so my whole theme with this is I want a rapid release, like 6 month scope games, and just get them out there. And if the scope's going to look like it's going to be beyond that, I kill my darlings and I move on to a new project that's going to be more feasible to fit within that 6 months, because I really don't want to spend a ton of time waiting to launch a new product. I want to be launching new games all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense financially for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's different for every developer and every situation and every game as well. But once you find what it is that you think works for you, you should definitely try your best to stick with that.
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of got a bit of a different perspective maybe, because a lot of the devs I see online, they're usually younger and they usually don't have kids. And so they have a lot more time to sink into these bigger projects every day where I don't have that luxury. I mean, I maybe have a couple hours in the morning before I go to work and maybe a couple hours on the weekends. But aside from that, that is my time to develop a game. And if I don't get it done, it just doesn't happen. So I really kind of need to prioritize and capitalize on the few hours I'm given every week.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you're able to do so much with such little time, because the Attack of the Karens and Big Top Tactics, like things move very quickly for you. I noticed this because I watch a lot of devs, but we've become friends over the years, and I'm seeing how quickly you move, and it's really inspirational, is what it is, because I know that you've got 4 kids. I know that you've got a full-time career. So to me, it's mind-blowing how much you're able to get done.
Well, thanks. Yeah, a lot of it is just like cutting out things. A lot of it is just like, we can't fit it. Nope, we're not going to do it. So I sacrifice a lot of the vision and a lot of the dream to be able to put a game out there. But I mean, in the end, I'm happy with it and I'm proud of it. And I think it's what I wanted to do. I mean, sometimes when the scope is too big, that's what you got to do, is you got to cut it off. And you just got to say, no, I'm not going to do that. And one tool that's really helped me a lot is when I think of a new project, and before I even go to Unity and boot up a new project, I lay everything out, right? I set up everything in an Excel spreadsheet of everything I want to accomplish for that game. And I might even plan out milestones of development that I want to hit. And I say, is this something I can actually do? And if it's not, I say, okay, what's going to go? What can I take out? And there was an article by Chris Zukowski, funny enough, that I think he just put out today. He talked about a game that I don't remember the name of the game off the top of my head, but it's a game that was going to be much, much bigger in scope. And they had a mini game part of the game that was where you were in your room and you were listening to chill music, kind of like that Lo-Fi Girl. Have you ever seen that on YouTube where she's writing in the notebook? Sure. And she's got the animal next to her or whatever. She's got the headphones on. They had kind of a micro part of the game where you'd be in your room doing that, I think it was. And so they took that and made that into a game, right? That micro game. And so their scope got cut immensely, but the game was successful. And so I don't think people are necessarily looking for a huge, huge, huge game. I mean, they get that from a AAA developer. I think when they look at indies, they're looking for unique mechanics. They're looking for really good art, just really cool things they can't find in the AAA industry. I think that's what our goal should be, to deliver for them as indie devs, as an alternative to entertainment that they can get in other places. So
it's a really interesting point.
Yeah, it's just, for me anyway, I think it's my opportunity to build a different world. It's my opportunity to build something unique that people haven't seen before. And so that's what I'm setting out to do.
Right on. Well, we're almost at an hour here. Was there anything else that you wanted to go over? Anything that comes to mind that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I think we pretty much hit everything. I'll just put a small plug in for my my email list. So if you go to my website, studioprimitive.net, you can sign up for emails, and I'll contact you there, and yeah, stay up to date on everything that I'm doing.
That's awesome. And as far as marketing goes, has there been any big changes in your marketing plans or and things that you're doing to promote your projects, or what you do on social media, or anything like that you want to chat about?
With Attack of the Karens, I pretty much just did Twitter posts, right? And I entered a couple of different festivals, but for this new game, I really want to build a kind of a library of streamers that are going to stream this type of cozy builder type game, and build a relationship with them and try and network with them to get them to know about the game early on, and be there for when I launch my Steam page, and they can maybe mention it on their stream and get wish lists that way. And then I can also use that same streamer army, I guess I would call it, to push the demo when the demo comes out, and to push the release when the release comes out. So I think I'm going to do a lot more legwork in terms of networking with streamers, talking with them and building relationships with those people so they can push my game. Also, getting on top of digital festivals, because those are two of the big pushers for indies right now, is streamers. And also I'm lumping YouTube content creators in with those streamers, but so streamers and YouTubers and then digital festivals, I think those are my keys to success for this. A lot of people say you need to go start a YouTube channel. You need to go start your own content brand. And for me, again, I don't have the time for that. So I got to find other ways to market my game other than just trying to tell people about it myself on YouTube, which I might, do some YouTube, but it's not going to be a main focus. I don't have the time to do the editing and to do all that stuff. It's just too big of a lift for me. So I've got to find better ways to do it.
That's actually what I was going to ask about your own YouTube content, or like TikTok or any of that type of stuff. So you're kind of straying away from that, but leaning more into finding content creators that are within your theme and genre of the project that you're working on.
Yeah, because they've already got the audiences that are interested in that kind of game, right? And so like, if my game aligns with what they're already talking about on the content on their channel, and I can get them to talk about my game, all that work of building a channel and building my own YouTube presence, that's already done if you can get them on your side and you get them talking about your game. So I think my time's a lot better used trying to get them to push my game for me. And that might take, some people might want a payment or something like that. That's just kind of how the world works. So hopefully I can set aside a little bit of the profits from Attack of the Karens and stuff to pay for some of that and get some sponsorships. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that's an interesting point also to bring up, that things are kind of shifting in the content creation area where people are expecting payment for this, where even last year or a couple years ago, people were just kind of willing to do it for free. But then you're seeing a lot of IGC, the Indie Game Committee, was it?
Collective, Indie Games Collective.
Collective, yeah. That's what it was. Indie Games Collective just kind of shuttered down because they couldn't afford their own upkeep because they're a nonprofit.
Yeah, that was sad to see. I was good friends with the founder of that, and so seeing that go down is really kind of tragic. They were getting a pretty good presence on Twitter anyway. I think they were up to like 12,000 followers or something, which is cool. And to see that an organization like that close down because they couldn't maintain their group was it was sad. But yeah, it is kind of the way things are going. But on the other side of that coin, like, you can find the small streamers that have just a small group of people that watch them, and they're more willing to kind of take on stuff for free. If they're just excited about your game, they'll talk about it. And if I can network with a bunch of those small streamers, it could be just as powerful as getting one big streamer to push my game. So there's ways of doing it without having to pay people, I think. I think it just comes down to building relationships.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like seeing the IGC start with Paradigm, way back in the day. That was years ago now. Yeah. And then it got so big to the point where people that I work with talk about it. You know what I mean? And people all over the world know about it. Streamers that I know will bring it up, not knowing that I knew about it. That everyone kind of knows about it now. Anyone who's into indie games knew about IGC.
That's crazy. That's crazy that people know about it.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that it just kind of fizzled like that. I almost feel like maybe they could have restructured or something and actually asked for money.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of indies would be okay with giving $5-10 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that would be enough, but maybe 15-20 or something like that would be, but
Yeah, I would definitely be okay with paying a submission fee or something if I wanted to have my game promoted. I mean, I submitted Attack of the Karens to the IGC when it launched, and I think I got like 7 or 8 streamers pick it up from there and push it, which definitely helped. So, I mean, that's content I would have willingly paid for. So,
yeah. No, I agree. I think that there's room for that type of stuff to occur, but I do think that the paradigm's changing. That's funny. The paradigm is changing a little because, like we mentioned, that streamers need to get paid too. If their job is content creating, or even if that's their hobby that they're doing after work, that's still time and effort that it should be accounted for.
Yeah, and Parrot did say that he was gonna keep on promoting indies and stuff. So I don't know, maybe something else will pop up in the future that he'll start. You never know, but it is sad to see it go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we covered a whole lot. I think everyone should go out and purchase Attack of the Karens and give it a shot. If they're at all into comedic roguelikes or shoot 'em ups, it's kind of a nice blend of that. So you should check it out. It's not super expensive. I think you actually lowered the price, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So to coincide with the Switch launch, because we priced the Switch launch at $4.99. So we lowered the price of the Steam version as well. So, and I think actually I'm checking, I think I'm on sale right now for 20% off. So, I mean, this is going to come out way after the sale ends, but
sure.
Sales do pop up frequently. So if you don't want to pay the full price, you can just add it to your wish list and you'll get an email when it goes on sale for a discount. So, but $5 I think is more than fair to pay for that game. So it's definitely going to keep you entertained for a while. But yeah, if any of your listeners want a fun, frustrating, funny roguelike, they can pick up Attack of the Karens.
And just real quick, did you notice any difference in sales when you changed the price on Steam?
Yeah, so it definitely had a boost. So it got about 5 or 10 sales that day when it went up. So for me, that's a lot. I don't know. For some devs, that's not very much at all. But for Attack of the Karens, that's pretty considerable. So yeah, it did help.
Cool. Right on. Well, yeah, I think everyone should go out and play that. Even if you'd like to go and play some of Joel's earlier games or Big Top Tactics, and follow him on Twitter, and make sure that you check out his upcoming projects, either with his brother or without his brother. I'm sure they're going to be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, it was fantastic chatting with you.
You too.
Hopefully we get a chance to do this again. I wouldn't be opposed of having you return for a third interview down the road when you've got something new.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to come back.
Cool. Yeah, we can make a habit out of this.
Yeah, it'd be awesome.
All right. Well, Joel, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Yeah, you too. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone for joining. This was episode 21 of Indie Game Dev Report. Everyone be sure to purchase Attack of the Karens on Steam or Nintendo Switch. Go to the Studio Primitive itch page and play Big Top Tactics for free. Make sure to follow Studio Primitive on Steam to hear about new releases in the future. Thank you again, and everyone, have a great rest of your day.